Hello, hello, hello. I am Nikole and welcome to the channel. Today we've got an episode of The Imprint. This is where we dig into the career journeys and the brands of our music legends. Now this episode is all centered on the one and only queen of pop, Miss Janet Jackson. She is the only artist to have a Grammy in every major category, has given us tons of iconic performances, and has been able to negotiate the largest record deals in history, not once, but twice. Now beyond the accolades, what has helped Miss Jackson connect with her audience and maintain her star power? Let's get into the imprint of Janet Jackson. Now, in order to get into the impact of all of these artists, you have to take a look at each phase of their career. Phase one for Miss Janet Jackson, I'm calling Daddy's Baby. Now, this is Janet's little-known era, at least when it comes to maybe my generation and younger. Releasing her first two albums, Janet Jackson in 1982 and Dream Street in 1984. Now, this wasn't a shock to the public due to her family history, but it was a shock to Janet herself. She saw herself mainly as an actress. She's on record saying that she wanted to go to college, study business and accounting, and support herself in her acting dreams. Now, by this time, she already had good times and different strokes under her belt. And I'm calling this era Daddy's Baby because this was actually Joe Jackson's plan for her, not her plan for herself. That being said, the music was very generic Jackson 80s music. Even with the Jackson sound and lights, it was tough to figure out how to push Janet as an artist. I don't even think she knew how to be pushed as an artist herself. The label pretty much tried to push her as the simple girl next door image, which didn't really connect with the media or with other girls her age. The media pretty much dug their heels in, saying that she would never live up to her brother Michael Jackson's success, which I feel is unfair because if you take a look at it, Janet's first two albums were coming out and Michael Jackson was in the first era. That's so unfair to compare a brand new artist to someone with that amount of success who's already had that much training in the public eye. I guess they assumed with the Jackson name, the Jackson image, she should automatically be a hit. That wasn't the case. So the label pretty much pivoted to finding her endorsements and pitching her overseas in Japan because the US was not having it. I guess in today's time, you would call this Janet's flop era. Moving right along into phase two, Janet makes some key decisions and takes control of her career. Now this is where we get into the albums that we all know and love. Control in 1986 and Rhythm Nation in 1989. Now I don't want no smoke, but she got rid of Joseph. I feel like this was the best move that she could have made. And I call him Joseph because that's what she called him. I don't know why she called her Daddy Joseph, but hey, it's okay. And being that music really wasn't her first goal, I don't know what made her pick up and keep going, but I'm glad she did. She got rid of Joseph and that generic Jackson sound, negotiated for a better contract, and got a fully new production team with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. Walking into this new era with a better team, a little more mature, and her own skin in the game, Janet came in with a new sense of freedom, both in writing and co-producing her music. This completely changed how she presented herself creatively and freed her up to tell her own stories. Control was a breakout album giving us singles like Nasty, Pressure Principle, and of course, the title track, Control. Jim and Terry Lewis gave her a fresh pop sound that didn't neglect who she was to the Black community. I also think Control presented authentic topics to 19 and 20-year-olds because that was her age demographic and that's what she was going through. With authentic topics and a new pop sound, it gave her a chance to develop an authentic audience. Coming off the success of Control, we jump right into Rhythm Nation, once again hitting us with songs like Miss You Much, Escapade, and of course, Rhythm Nation. This album sound not only pushed her creatively when it comes to performance and visuals, it also helped her develop a platform for messages she cared about. This album was filled with socio-political topics such as race, poverty, and sparked controversy, but happened to connect her more with her urban and Black audience. I think this is one key thing for her because when a lot of Black artists get successful and cross over into the pop lane, sometimes the Black community or Black audience may feel neglected or not seen by the artist anymore. And Rhythm Nation really absolved all of that issue for her. And her connection to the Black community eventually becomes really important, but we'll get there. The next phase of her career, we have some more great decisions and a bit of magical timing for Miss Jackson. Rhythm Nation wrapped up her original contract with AMA Records and freed her up to make some transitions not only professionally but personally. Janet's new record deal with AMA Records made her the highest paid musician at the time with a $40 million record deal. Phase 3, I'm calling R&B Darling. With her 1993 album Janet and 1997 album Velvet Rope, I feel like sonically, her production team was able to keep up with the R&B sounds, but also help Janet progress as a woman. Now in her mid to late 20s, Janet moves from the teeny bopper pop star to a grown and sexy R&B diva. The album Janet gave us songs like That's the Way Love Goes and Anytime, Anyplace, plus that iconic Rolling Stone cover. Velvet Rope gave us songs like Got Till It's Gone and I Get So Lonely. Also during this time, between tours, Janet was able to jump back into that acting bag and give us the iconic classic Poetic Justice starring alongside Tupac. Gearing up for the next album, Janet was able to take that $40 million contract back to the table, swap it out for $80 million, set her up for the perfect rollout for the Velvet Rope tour. I can't zoom past this Velvet Rope era because it was critically acclaimed for genre bending. Even with the main tones of R&B, this album gave us pop, it gave us R&B, rock, folk, and a lot of electronic sounds. Also obviously gave us the Velvet Rope tour, which landed a primetime HBO special. And I'm pretty sure y'all have seen those videos. If you have not, I will link them below. Janet definitely went full force with the sexuality in the Velvet Rope era, whereas the other era seemed more of an exploration of her sexuality. She definitely had figured it out by this time. And the media had a field day with the expression of her sexuality, from her lyrics to her performances. Even as a 31-year-old married woman, I guess our US society just is a little uncomfortable with a black woman exploring and expressing her sexuality. Even today, I'm still trying to figure out what's the big issue. Now as I'm going through this, I'm realizing up until the 2000s, nothing could really stop Janet Jackson. The tours were breaking records, she was taking home all the awards, and developed a super loyal fan base. But phase 4 is the showstopper. This era gave us albums All For You in 2001 and Damita Jo in 2004. What is always consistent for Janet is the music. It doesn't matter what's happening in the industry, it doesn't matter what radio wants to hear, Janet is gonna deliver the music. I want to say she keeps up with the times, but I honestly feel like she's always on the edge of innovating what's happening in the music industry. All For You was a dance album dedicated to her fans, coming off the heels of her divorce and a battle with depression. Some of those dark elements can be heard in the music, but that contrast seems more of an expression of joy in the face of pain. All For You was set to have a massive tour, but unfortunately due to the terrorist attacks of 2001, everything came to a halt musically. During this time, Janet was able to star in The Nutty Professor alongside Eddie Murphy and do a bunch of other sitcoms and TV spots, getting back to her first love of acting. In 2004, gearing up for the release of Damita Jo, Janet had two things in her way. First of all, a record label merger, and second of all, the infamous Super Bowl incident. In the early 2000s, it was no surprise for a record label to either completely shut down or merge, because the whole industry was still letting the dust settle after the digital age came about. During this time, A&M Records had both Janet and Mariah Carey on the label, and Mariah decided to leave ship. Her separating from the label cost them a hefty amount, as you could imagine. That financial blow caused A&M Records to sell and eventually changed a lot of creatives and executives that were attached to Janet's project. Now for the Super Bowl drama. I won't dig too deep into it because still to this day, none of us know exactly what happened. I remember watching this Super Bowl performance at my grandma's house, sitting on the floor next to my cousin, and I swear I never saw a nipple. If you ask me, I blame the NFL because you hired MTV, the same people who produced the VMAs, to come and produce your halftime show. Looking back at it, everything went wrong. Kid Rock was disrespecting the NFL's precious American flag. Nelly had women in booty shorts dropping down, getting their eagle on. Some random man was naked running across the field. But we all chose to focus on one black woman's nipple that we saw for a millisecond. That can be a whole video within itself. But I say all of this to say that this disabled the media trifecta of the 2000s for Janet's promotional campaign for Damita Jo. During that time, there was no big social media platform for artists to directly promote their music. If you were promoting an album, you needed to have access to TV and radio spots. That Super Bowl performance caused a media circus for Janet, limiting her access to both radio and TV. Now, Damita Jo, the album, did well, but definitely not by Janet Jackson standards. She only had access to pretty much black outlets as far as E1 for radio and BET for television. And that's super limiting for a major artist like Janet Jackson, who needs access to Clear Channel Radio for pop stations and access to MTV, VH1 to showcase her videos for the pop audience. Our cancel culture of today has nothing on what they put Janet through. Due to social media, people can be canceled for maybe 2 weeks. Janet was dealing with this for months on end, and it's still being discussed to this day. As I alluded to earlier, Janet's deeply rooted connection to the black community really helped carry her through the promotion of the Damita Jo album, being able to still have access to those black outlets to promote the music that she was able to put out. This core of her audience already had a deep connection with her and could relate to her journey as a black woman. I can only imagine if she didn't have this portion of her audience to support her after dominating the pop industry and dealing with the media backlash from that wardrobe malfunction. To bring this segment to a close, we'll jump into the final phase, Unbreakable. After the Damita Jo album and the Super Bowl storm, Janet still released more albums, releasing 20YO in 2006, Discipline in 2008, and Unbreakable in 2015. All of these albums had less of a push for radio and visuals, I feel mainly due to ageism and still a little bit of isolation from that incident. But even for me, as someone I wouldn't automatically place into the scope of Janet's audience demographic, the single selections from those albums were fire. 20YO gave us Call on Me featuring Nelly. One album gave us No Sleep featuring J. Cole. By the way, that video was freaking gorgeous. She looked impeccable in that video. It gave us the amazing dance track Feedback, which is still in heavy rotation, at least on my playlist. I mentioned before, it does not matter what is happening. Janet is always going to deliver the music and a performance. That's her bottom line. Janet can still put on a tour to this day and sell out arenas because you know you're going to get a great show just as visually appealing as the All For You tour or even the Velvet Rope tour. Another beautiful thing is the continuous support she's received from black creatives that she's inspired. During this era, Janet maintained her visibility, getting back to what she originally loved, acting. By starring in the film series Why Did I Get Married, also being a part of the beautiful ensemble cast of For Color Girl. I wouldn't say there's been some huge notable comeback for Janet, but her name, her brand, and her music remains revered, and her fans are always there to support her. In 2018, Black Twitter went up when Justin Timberlake was invited to perform yet again at the Super Bowl, despite his involvement in that incident in 2004. They deemed that day Janet Jackson Appreciation Day. Now, when you don't have to call out an injustice to your name and your fans do it for you, I'll say you've successfully left your imprint on this world. Now let's get into the brand. For me, Janet's brand is comprised of three major things. That is performance, storytelling, and femininity. When it comes to performance, Janet is one of those icons that even some of our new faves and our new greats have continued to study. Now, if you ask me, we can talk about this a little bit if y'all want to, but I do think she surpassed her brother as far as performance goes. Yeah, I'm gonna say that. I thoroughly enjoy Janet's performances, just from visually, a little more than Michael. Michael Jackson is the GOAT, but I'm just saying they go neck and neck if you ask me. Janet a little higher. And when it comes to storytelling, Janet is always going to paint that picture for you. Now, whether she is being inspirational, whether she's going to talk about things that are happening politically, or if she's going to talk about what's happening in that bedroom, she's going to get that point across. And when it comes to femininity, I think that Janet is one of those artists that gave us a gradual journey into womanhood. I mean, we literally watched her grow up from literally a 5-year-old on television dancing with her family to now a 40-year-old woman, fully grown, has had her life experiences, has experienced the good, the bad, and the ugly, in the media and privately, and has inspired generations of young Black women to come into their own and own their narrative, however they choose to. Now for all of my artists and creatives, here's 5 things that you can learn from Janet Jackson. For one, do not be afraid to make adjustments. As we saw earlier in her career, she dipped out on her daddy and was like, nope, new management team. And even took that contract back to that label a few times, be like, nah, I need more money. When it's time to make changes and when it's time to make adjustments, you will know. Make those adjustments so you can continue to level up and you don't get deterred off of your path. Number 2, own your narrative. At the end of the day, as a creative and an artist, you are selling yourself. People want to know who you are. People want to know what you go through. And if you are in the art, it will connect with the audience that you're supposed to have, not necessarily who people think you're supposed to have. 3, find your constant. For Janet, it was performing. That's the one thing she knew she could always rely on when things were not going right, or when she needed to get out there and make some money. She knows she could put together a tour that people were gonna buy, sell out, and make sure that she was supported, she was visible, and that her career could keep going. 4, master visibility. Now, when music is not going right, maybe you got writer's block, maybe it's not selling or connecting or flowing the way it used to. You should rely on those other skills or those things that you love doing, those other passions that you have, and make sure that those are things that your audience are connected to as well, so they don't feel neglected. And finally, number 5, build your own platforms. Now, this is something that a lot of independents and creatives are already on, but you want to make sure they're solid and connected to your audience. You want to make sure that there is a community and there's things there that people can rely on. Now, Janet didn't have social media and all of the technology that we have now to be able to go directly to our audience. You do. Make sure you're building these platforms out so they can continue to support your passions. Janet Jackson has influenced artists such as Beyonce, Tiana Taylor, Normani, and Doja Cat. She sustained a 40-year career despite all of the media hoopla and scandals and even sexism. Now, I am thoroughly disappointed that I have yet to see this woman live, but let's cross our fingers and hope for a tour. Anyway, what do you think other artists could learn from Janet Jackson? What elements of her brand and image do you love? Let me know in the comments. And y'all already know what to do here on this platform, but be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more music content like the imprint. Also hit that notification bell so you never miss a drop. I'll see y'all in the next video.